The cold wind of Varela Prime moved through the narrow streets like a whisper of sadness. Neon signs flickered above the gray market, showing bright toys, shiny robots, and glowing stars that danced on glass displays. But in front of one toy shop, a small alien girl stood still, her eyes wide, her breath fogging the window. Her name was Mira. She was small, with pale violet skin and soft silver hair tied with an old ribbon. On the other side of the window stood a doll, not an ordinary one, but a Starlight Doll, a toy every child dreamed of. It could sing lullabies, project stars on the ceiling, and even whisper bedtime wishes in a voice like a mother's. Behind Mira stood her mother, Lyra, tired and thin. Her coat was torn, her eyes hollow from many sleepless nights. She watched her daughter's face light up with wonder. Lyra wanted to smile too, but her heart was heavy. She knew she couldn't buy it, not even close. Inside, rich alien children pointed at the shelves, their laughter echoing like a song from another world. A well-dressed merchant adjusted his scarf and came outside. He looked at Lyra and Mira with cold eyes. "You again?" he said sharply. "Looking won't make it cheaper. Either buy or move away." Lyra lowered her head. "I just wanted to ask—" "The price," the merchant smirked. "Price for you? 500 credits. Maybe sell your coat, your house, your hope, then come back." The crowd laughed. Lyra held Mira's hand tightly and walked away fast. She didn't want her daughter to see her tears. As they walked, the sky darkened. Acid rain began to fall, soft drops that burned tiny holes into the ground. Lyra pulled her thin scarf over Mira's head. "Stay close, my little star." They reached their small home, a broken metal room behind the old factory. Inside it was cold and empty. Only one small heater flickered weakly in the corner. Mira sat on the floor holding her broken toy, a tiny robot missing one eye. "Mama," she said softly, "will I get a Starlight Doll for my birthday tomorrow?" Lyra froze. Her hands trembled as she pretended to fix the heater. Maybe next year, love. This year the stars are a little far away." Mira smiled anyway. "It's okay, Mama, maybe the stars will send one." Lyra turned away, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered to herself, "If only stars could hear us." Outside, the streets grew quiet. From the shadows, a human traveler named Evan walked slowly past their window. His clothes were dusty from travel, his boots heavy with mud. He looked like someone who had been wandering for a long, long time. He paused when he saw the dim light inside, the small girl laughing softly as her mother wrapped an old blanket around her shoulders. Evan's eyes softened. He had once had a daughter too, small, bright-eyed, full of dreams. But the war between humans and alien worlds had taken her, and his home, everything. Since then, he had traveled from planet to planet, fixing machines, repairing ships, staying silent. But now, seeing that little girl smile through the cold, something inside him stirred. A memory, or maybe something deeper. He stood there for a while, watching through the cracked glass. The girl placed her broken toy beside her and whispered something into the darkness. "Good night, stars. Maybe you'll visit tomorrow." Lyra kissed her forehead and blew out the small lamp. The room fell into soft shadow. Evan took a slow breath. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something, a small glowing crystal. It was the last piece of human technology he had kept, a gift once meant for his own child. It was shaped like a tiny star. He stared at it for a long time. "Would you want her to have it?" he whispered to no one. His voice cracked. The crystal glowed faintly in answer. Evan looked at the window one last time. He saw the mother lying beside her child, holding her close, whispering something only love could say, the kind of love that didn't need words. The wind outside carried the sound of the market shutting down, the hum of lights dying, the sighs of the city falling asleep. Evan placed the glowing crystal carefully on the step near their door. He didn't knock. He didn't want thanks. As he walked away into the night, the crystal began to shine brighter, soft white light spreading like a tiny piece of the universe. Inside, Mira woke for a moment. She saw something glowing through the cracks of the door. "Mama," she whispered. The stars came. Lyra opened her eyes, confused. She stood up, opened the door, and gasped. There it was. A tiny glowing star lying in the dust. She looked around. The street was empty. Only soft rain fell, washing the dirt around the crystal. She picked it up slowly, feeling its warmth. Her heart beat fast. Who left this? Mira laughed, her eyes wide. It's from the stars, Mama. They heard me. Lyra smiled weakly, staring at the crystal. Maybe they did, little one. Maybe they did. But deep down she knew. Stars didn't walk the streets. Someone else had. Someone kind. Outside, far away in the shadows, Evan looked back once. For the first time in years, he smiled. The morning came slowly on Virella Prime. The sky was still gray, filled with thin silver clouds that never moved. Factories hummed in the distance, spilling smoke that hid the sunrise. Lyra woke up early. Her hands were cold as she checked the heater. It had stopped working again. She looked at her sleeping daughter, Mira, curled under a thin blanket holding the glowing crystal they had found last night. It still shined softly like a star that refused to die. For a moment, Lyra smiled. That light made her heart warm. Maybe it was just a gift from someone kind, or maybe the universe had listened. Either way, it made Mira happy, and that was all that mattered. She dressed quietly and went outside to the street. The market was waking up. Traders shouted, cleaning their stands, and floating carts moved through the air. Lyra walked carefully, her worn boots wet from the morning mist. She planned to sell her last silver bracelet to buy bread and maybe a small sweet for Mira's birthday. At the corner of the market, Evan, the human traveler, was already there. His face was tired, his beard rough. He had spent the night fixing a generator for a trader, who paid him with one meal and a small coin as he ate his breakfast. Just a warm drink and bread, his mind kept going, back to the little alien girl and her mother. The way they looked at that doll. The way the mother smiled even when she had nothing. He didn't understand why it bothered him so much. Maybe because he used to see the same look in his own daughter's eyes, before the war, before everything burned. He shook the memory away and began walking through the market carrying his small tool bag. He told himself he wouldn't get involved. Not again. But fate has its own plans. Lyra reached the same shop as yesterday. The Starlight Doll still shone inside the glass window, spinning slowly, singing its soft lullaby. Mira's favorite song. The shopkeeper saw her again and frowned. You again? Don't waste my time, alien. Lyra didn't answer. She just looked once more and turned to leave. That's when she bumped into Evan. Her bag fell, spilling her few coins. The shopkeeper laughed. Oh, look. She brought her whole fortune this time. Evan bent down quickly and helped gather the coins. His voice was gentle. Here, you dropped these. Lyra froze when she saw him, a human. People around stopped and whispered. Humans were rare on Virella Prime. Some feared them. Some hated them. She pulled the coins away, whispering, We don't need your help. Evan looked into her eyes. Maybe not. But you deserve it anyway. His tone wasn't pity. It was quiet respect. Lyra blinked, not knowing what to say. Then she turned away and hurried off. Evan watched her go, feeling something heavy in his chest. Later that day, Lyra stood by the food stall, trying to choose between a loaf of bread or a small slice of sweet cake for Mira. Her hands trembled. She had just enough for one. Then someone behind her said, Take both. She turned and saw Evan again. He placed a few credits on the counter. Lyra shook her head quickly. No, I can't. It's not charity, he said softly. It's a birthday gift for your daughter. Lyra's eyes widened. How do you know? He smiled faintly. She talked to the stars, remember? For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Lyra took the bread but refused the cake. Thank you, but that's enough. Evan nodded. You're strong. Not many would refuse more. Before she could answer, a loud horn sounded nearby. A group of alien patrol guards marched through the market. People stepped aside quickly. One guard pointed at Evan. Human detected. Check his permit. Evan showed a small metal badge. The guard looked at it with disgust but let him go. Lyra saw it all. The fear in his eyes, the anger in theirs. When the guards left, she whispered, Why stay here? They hate your kind. Evan looked at the dull gray sky. Because kindness has no kind. Lyra had no reply. That night, back in her small home, Lyra gave Mira the bread. They shared it with laughter. Mira told her about her dream, that she was flying between stars, holding the glowing crystal, chasing a big smiling sun. Lyra brushed her hair and smiled softly. Maybe dreams are how stars talk to us. When Mira fell asleep, Lyra placed the crystal on the table. It glowed brighter than before. She turned it over and noticed something tiny carved on its edge. Letters she didn't understand. She squinted. It looked like an Earth language. She remembered the human. Outside, footsteps echoed in the street. She peeked through the window. Evan walked past, his figure dim under the lamps. He paused for a moment, looked toward her home, then kept walking into the mist. Lyra touched the crystal again. It felt warm, like it remembered his hand. She whispered, "Who are you, human stranger?" In the distance, thunder rolled over the city, and far above the clouds the stars began to move. The next morning, the first thing Mira saw was the little glowing crystal on the table. It shimmered like soft starlight, painting golden light on the metal walls. She gasped, her small hands reaching out. "Mama, look. The star is still here." Lyra smiled sleepily. "Yes, my love. The star stayed with us." Mira pressed the crystal to her heart. "Maybe it likes us, Mama. Maybe it wants to live here." Lyra laughed softly, but deep inside she felt uneasy. She still didn't know who had left it, and why. When she held it in her own hands, she felt something strange. It was warm, alive, like it was breathing. On one side, she noticed a small symbol, one she didn't recognize. She had seen similar marks only on human-made machines in the old war museum. Her smile faded. Human technology? She looked out the window across the street. The city was slowly waking up. Merchants opening their stalls, guards patrolling, drones scanning the sky. And somewhere among them, the human stranger, Evan. That same morning, Evan walked through the market with his head down. He had been questioned again by patrol officers. They didn't like humans staying too long in alien cities. He worked quietly, repairing small devices for a few credits. Every beep and buzz reminded him of the old days when he built ships, not street lamps, but his mind wasn't on the work. It was on the alien mother and her daughter, and the glowing crystal he had left behind. He knew it wasn't just a gift. The crystal was a fragment of an old Starlight mapping core, a piece from the original prototype of the Starlight Dolls. It contained something priceless, a star chart linked to Earth's constellations, something no alien technology could replicate. He had kept it for years as the last memory of his own child, but last night when he saw the small girl smile in her sleep, he knew his daughter would have wanted him to give it away. Back at home, Lyra tried to hide her worry. Mira kept dancing around with the glowing crystal, holding it up to the ceiling. When she spun it fast, tiny sparkles floated in the air like pieces of heaven. "Mama, it sings." Mira giggled. Lyra froze. "It what?" Mira shook it again and a faint humming began, a melody soft and human. It wasn't alien music. It was something older, something filled with emotion. Lyra sat beside her, listening. For a moment, the room didn't feel cold anymore. It felt alive. But then a knock came at the door. Hard, heavy, unfriendly. Lyra quickly hid the crystal under a cloth and opened the door a little. Two patrol guards stood outside wearing black armor with red visors. "Routine scan," one said. "We detected unusual energy near this block last night." "Human tech frequency." Lyra's heart almost stopped. "Human tech here? No. There must be a mistake." They pushed past her without asking. One scanned the room. Another looked under the bed. Mira stood frozen, clutching the hidden crystal tightly in her hands behind her back. The device beeped. "There, reading detected." Lyra stepped forward quickly. "Please, it's just a toy." She lied, her voice shaking. "My daughter found it in the trash." The guard grabbed it roughly from Mira's hands. The little girl gasped. "Don't hurt it!" The crystal flashed once, releasing a burst of light so bright that everyone shielded their eyes. When the glow faded, the guard stared at it in shock. "This isn't alien-made. It's human code." Lyra's heart sank. "Please, sir, it's just a toy." The guard turned to his partner. "We report this. The human must be close." They started to leave. But before they could step out, a calm voice spoke from behind them. "Let her be." "That's mine." They turned. Evan stood at the doorway, his jacket wet from rain, his eyes tired but steady. The taller guard narrowed his eyes. "You again, human?" "Why are you here?" Evan lifted his hand slowly. "Because that crystal belongs to me. It's harmless. Just old tech." "You're under investigation for tech smuggling," the guard hissed. Evan sighed. "Then take me." "Leave the mother and child out of it." Lyra froze. "No, wait." But the guards didn't listen. They pushed Evan forward and dragged him out. Mira cried, reaching for him. Wait, that's our star. Evan looked back once and smiled gently at her. Keep it shining, little one. The door slammed shut behind them. That night, Lyra sat in silence, the crystal glowing softly again in Mira's hands. Mama, why did they take him? Mira whispered. Lyra didn't know what to say. Her throat burned. Sometimes the kindest people are the ones who suffer most. She looked at the crystal again, and something strange happened. It began to project tiny lights on the wall. First one star, then another, then hundreds, forming a pattern of a constellation. And slowly, glowing letters appeared above it, words written in human language. Lyra didn't understand the words, but she recognized one name repeated again and again. Mira. Her breath caught. It's for you, my love. The crystal pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Outside, thunder rolled again, but this time it sounded almost like a promise. The city of Varela Prime slept under heavy rain that night. Silver lights blinked across the skyline like fading stars. In the narrow streets, shadows moved, patrols searching, scanners humming, and somewhere in between, a mother's silent tears. Lyra sat by the small window, her hands trembling. The guards had taken Evan, the human traveler. They said he was guilty of smuggling human tech, but Lyra knew he was innocent. He had protected her and Mira. On the table, the glowing crystal still pulsed softly like it was alive. Every few seconds it shined brighter, throwing small stars across the walls. Mira watched them in silence, hugging her knees. Mama, she whispered. Will they hurt him? Lyra looked at her daughter's pale face. No, love. He's strong. He helped us once, maybe. He will find a way back. But deep down, she wasn't sure. On this planet, humans didn't come back once taken by the patrol. In the prison district, Evan sat in a cold metal cell. Chains around his wrists glowed faint blue, energy locks. Across the hall, guards whispered, Why risk your life for them, human? One sneered. You don't belong here. Evan didn't answer. He stared at the wall, lost in thought. In his mind, he saw a small girl's smile, Mira's, then another from years ago, his own daughter's. The two memories began to blur, like stars merging in the night sky. He closed his eyes. If I can't save my own, maybe I can save hers. He leaned back and whispered to himself, Not done yet. Meanwhile, Lyra couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but her heart raced. She couldn't shake the image of Evan being dragged away. She looked at the crystal again. Suddenly, the light inside began to spin faster, forming shapes, then a map. Stars appeared, glowing in different colors. Lines connected them, creating a path leading to a far corner of the city, near the industrial ruins. What is this? She whispered. Mira ran to her. Mama, it's showing the way. Maybe it's trying to help us find him. Lyra hesitated. It could be dangerous. But then she saw Mira's hopeful eyes, the same eyes that had once stared at the shop window, dreaming of stars. She couldn't let fear stop her again. Get your coat, Lyra said softly. We're going to follow the light. They stepped out into the cold night. The streets were empty except for the flicker of broken lamps. The crystal glowed in Lyra's hand, guiding them through alleys and bridges. Each time they reached a turn, the stars shifted, pointing forward. They passed old posters warning against human contact, crime against the state. Lyra looked away. Her heart burned with anger and guilt. They call him dangerous, but he was the only one who showed kindness. Finally, they reached the ruins, a half-destroyed factory with shattered glass and twisted metal. The air smelled of rust and rain. Mama, it's scary here, Mira whispered, clutching her arm. I know, love. Stay close. Inside, the crystal's light grew brighter. It projected symbols across the walls, human letters and numbers, blueprints of machines, and finally, a name, Evan Clark. Lyra's eyes widened. It's his code. His signature. Then, the crystal flickered again, showing a short message, recorded in Evan's voice. If you found this, it means I failed. But maybe you can finish what I started. The Starlight Dolls were never meant to be for the rich. They were made to bring light to every child, human or alien. Inside this crystal is the key to all of them. Protect it, and protect your daughter. Lyra covered her mouth. He knew this would happen. The recording ended. The crystal dimmed, Before she could think, heavy footsteps echoed outside. Flashlights cut through the dust. "Search the area," shouted a guard. "We tracked the human signal here." Lyra grabbed Mira's hand and ran behind a pile of metal crates. The guards entered, scanning the floor. One of them noticed footprints. "Someone's been here recently." Mira's breathing grew shaky. Lyra covered her mouth gently, whispering, "Shh, don't move." But the crystal, as if reacting to her fear, began to glow faintly again, betraying their hiding spot. "Over there," shouted a guard. Lyra panicked. She looked at her daughter, terrified, and made a choice. She picked up a metal rod and threw it across the room. It clattered loudly. The guards turned toward the sound and ran in that direction. "Now," she whispered, pulling Mira toward the back door. They slipped out into the rain, hearts pounding. The path led downhill toward the old river tunnels. Behind them, sirens wailed. Mira gasped. "Mama, the crystal, look." Lyra glanced down. The glowing stars had rearranged again. This time, they didn't point to the ruins, and they pointed upward, beyond the city's lights toward the sky. A small hologram appeared above it, a broken Starlight Doll design with coordinates and a final message blinking. "Find the heart of light." Lyra stared at it, rain dripping down her face. "Heart of light? What does that mean?" Mira looked up at the clouds and whispered, "Maybe. That's where he is." Lyra hugged her tightly. She didn't know where this path led, but she knew she would follow it. For Mira, for the man who had risked everything, for the light that refused to die. As thunder rolled again, she whispered, "Hold on. Evan, we're coming." The stars on the crystal blinked once more, as if answering her. Cold wind moved through the empty factory ruins. Broken lights blinked weakly, and puddles shone like pieces of mirror on the floor. Lyra and little Mira stood in the doorway, dripping rainwater, clutching the glowing crystal that had guided them there. The air smelled of dust and metal. Huge machines stood silent, half buried in rust. A long-forgotten sign still hung on the wall. "Starlight Toys and bringing hope to every world." Lyra whispered, "So this is where they were made." The crystal brightened, throwing soft white light ahead. It floated out of her hand and hovered like it was remembering the way. Mira gasped, "Mama, it knows this place." They followed the glowing trail through dark halls until it stopped near a broken door marked Lab 3. The door hissed open slowly. Inside were shelves covered in dust, half-finished dolls with glass eyes and blueprints scattered everywhere. On one table lay an old computer still humming faintly. The crystal drifted down into a small port and clicked perfectly in place. The screen flickered to life. Lines of human text filled the screen, then a calm, tired voice echoed through hidden speakers. "This is Evan Clark. If you're hearing this, you've reached what's left of the Starlight Project." Lyra froze. It was his voice. These dolls were meant to help children sleep under safe light, to remind them that stars still shine even in war. But the corporations turned them into luxury toys, symbols of power. I left one secret inside every prototype, a map that could rebuild the heart of the network, the heart of light. The message paused. Static filled the room for a moment. "If you're holding the crystal, then you can finish what I couldn't." Every Starlight Doll in the galaxy listens for the heart's signal. "Restore it, and every poor child will see the stars again." Then the voice ended. Lyra stared at the screen, speechless. Mira tugged her sleeve. "Mama, he made the stars for everyone." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, my love. He did." Suddenly a sharp alarm rang through the factory. Red lights flashed. Mira covered her ears. "What's happening?" Lyra turned toward the door. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed. The patrol guards had found them again. She grabbed the crystal. "Run, Mira, hide!" They ducked behind the old machines as the door burst open. 2 guards entered with scanners. Energy signature detected, human origin. "Find it." One moved closer, shining a light across the tables. The other kicked a fallen doll aside. Its eyes lit up suddenly, projecting a beam of stars onto the ceiling. Both guards froze. "What the—" That tiny delay gave Lyra a moment. She pressed a button on the computer. A hologram popped up. Hundreds of dots connected like a map across the galaxy. In the center glowed a single bright pulse labeled Heart of Light, core location active. The guards turned. "Shut that off," Lyra shouted. "Mira, now!" Mira tossed a small metal part she'd found earlier. It hit a machine, sparking loudly. Smoke filled the air. Lyra grabbed the crystal and ran toward the side door, pulling Mira behind her. Blaster shots sizzled past them, hitting the walls. "Stop them," one guard yelled. But before they reached the exit, the hologram exploded into the air. Dozens of Starlight Dolls scattered around the room suddenly activated. Their eyes glowed, their tiny voices singing softly in harmony. Light belongs to all children of the stars. The sound filled the factory like a prayer. The guards froze again, staring in disbelief as hundreds of holographic stars spun around them. Lyra pushed open the side door and escaped into the cold night. Outside, rain poured again, washing the dust from her face. She and Mira ran until they reached an old transport tunnel. They stopped to catch their breath. Mira clutched the glowing crystal close. "Mama, did we do something bad?" Lyra knelt beside her and smiled sadly. "No, my little star. We did something good. Maybe too good for them to understand." The crystal pulsed once, projecting a single line of text into the air. "Coordinates uploaded. Heart of light activated." Lyra blinked. "It's sending a signal." Far above the planet, old satellites flickered to life, devices that hadn't moved in years. The message traveled through them like a whisper across the cosmos. In distant cities, old Starlight Dolls in forgotten rooms began to glow. Poor children looked up in wonder as starlight filled their ceilings again. Lyra held Mira close. "He did it, Mira. Evan did it." But deep inside, worry still burned. If the guards traced the signal, they would come for them again. And maybe for Evan too, wherever he was held. She looked toward the horizon where the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. "We must find him," she said. "He gave us the stars. Now we give him freedom." Mira nodded bravely. "We'll find our human." The crystal glowed brighter as if it agreed. In the distance, the city alarm began to wail. Somewhere deep in the prison district, a faint light appeared inside Evan's cell. The chains around his wrists flickered and went dark. He opened his eyes, whispering, "You found it." He smiled through pain. "Good job, little star." Outside, across the night sky of Varela Prime, thousands of stars began to shimmer again. Real ones this time, piercing the smog like tiny promises. The morning sky over Varela Prime was strange that day. It wasn't gray anymore. It shimmered faintly, touched by tiny lights, as if real stars had returned after many long years. People on the street stopped and stared. Children pointed upward, smiling. No one understood how the light had come back. But the soldiers did, and they were not smiling. Inside the command station, alarms flashed red. Officers rushed across the control room. Satellite reactivation detected. Unauthorized signal coming from old industrial sector. The commander slammed his fist on the table. "It's the human. He's behind this. Find him now." In a small shelter deep under the city, Lyra held her daughter Mira close. The crystal in Mira's hand had stopped glowing, its light now faint like a sleeping star. "Mama," Mira whispered. "Did we do something wrong?" Lyra brushed a hand over her hair. "No, my light. We just showed them the stars again." But her eyes were filled with worry. She knew the patrols would come again, and they wouldn't stop this time. Suddenly, the shelter door banged open. A neighbor rushed in, out of breath. "Lyra, they're arresting anyone seen near the factory last night. They say the human escaped." Lyra's heart froze. "Escaped?" "Yes," the woman said. "The guards found his cell open and the power dead. They think he's heading back to finish whatever he started." Lyra stood quickly. "We have to find him first." Mira looked up. "We're going to help him, right?" Lyra nodded. "He saved us once. Now it's our turn." At the same time, Evan was running through the narrow alleys of Varela Prime. His wrists still bore the red marks from the energy chains, but he didn't stop. He followed the signal that echoed faintly from the small chip inside his jacket, connected to the crystal Lyra carried. He coughed, hiding in a shadow as patrol drones passed overhead. He could hear the citywide announcement repeating on speakers. "Warning, escaped human engineer. Wanted for crimes against planetary order. Reward 50,000 credits," he muttered, half smiling. 50,000, huh? Guess I'm finally worth something." But his smile faded as he looked up. From every direction, banners showed his image. He had no time left. He pressed the small device on his wrist, the old communicator he built years ago. It beeped softly and projected a single line of text. "Signal link active." Starlight core connected, he whispered. Come on, Lyra, follow the light. The city's edge came into view, metal towers fading into open desert. That was where the original Starlight network hub was buried long ago. If they could reach it, they could finish what the corporations tried to erase, reconnect every Starlight Doll in the galaxy. But before Evan could move farther, a siren wailed. A hovercraft descended fast, lights flashing. Guards jumped out with blasters raised. Hands up, human. Evan slowly lifted his hands. You don't want to do this. The commander stepped forward, tall, armored, face hidden by a silver mask. You've already done enough, engineer. You'll pay for what your kind started, Evan smiled sadly. My kind built toys. Yours turned them into weapons. The commander struck him hard across the face. Chain him. As they dragged him toward the hovercraft, he caught a glimpse of the sky, faint stars twinkling above the smog. For a moment he thought of Mira. He hoped she was safe, but not far away in the desert tunnel, Lyra and Mira were already on their way. The crystal had begun to glow again, brighter than before, pulling them toward the dunes. The wind roared, carrying fine dust, but Lyra didn't stop. She could feel Evan's presence like a heartbeat in the air. Mama, the light is moving faster, Mira said, her voice full of awe. Yes, Lyra gasped. It's calling us. They reached the top of a hill and then froze. Below them, in the open plain, they saw the hovercraft and soldiers. In the middle of them, Evan on his knees, hands bound. Mira gripped her mother's hand tightly. They're going to take him. Lyra's heart raced. She looked around desperately. The crystal glowed stronger in Mira's hands, projecting a small hologram. It showed a symbol, the same heart shape from the Starlight Doll factory. Beneath it, glowing words appeared. Voice link active. Say the word. Lyra's breath caught. Say the word? What word? Before she could think, Mira whispered softly, light. The crystal burst into brilliance. A beam shot into the sky, splitting the clouds apart. All across the city, old satellites reactivated again. The soldiers stopped and looked up as the entire desert glowed. The Starlight Network came alive, filling the night with moving constellations and holograms of children from every species, laughing, singing, holding dolls that glowed with hope. The commander shouted, "Shut it down! Destroy it!" But it was too late. The light wrapped around them, disarming their weapons with pure energy. Evan lifted his head weakly and saw the sky blazing with color. Then he saw Lyra and Mira standing at the hill's edge, illuminated by the light he had dreamed of for years. He smiled faintly. You did it. The commander grabbed his weapon and pointed it at Mira. No more light. Lyra screamed. Evan moved before thinking. He lunged forward, tackling the commander just as the weapon fired. The beam struck the ground near Mira, exploding in dust. Guards rushed forward, chaos everywhere. Evan struggled to his feet, shouting, "Run!" Lyra ran down, grabbed Mira, and together they pulled Evan away as the beam of light swallowed the desert in pure white glow. Then, silence. When the light faded, the soldiers were gone. Only wind and stars remained. Evan lay on the sand, breathing hard. Lyra knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. You saved us again, she whispered. He looked at Mira, who held the glowing crystal close to her chest. No, he said softly. She saved everyone. Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever before, as if the universe itself was finally awake. Silence covered the desert. Only the wind moved, soft, gentle, brushing over the sand where light had once burned bright. When Lyra opened her eyes, she saw stars above. Real stars. Not from a machine or a doll, but from the sky itself. They shone through the smog like diamonds finally freed. Beside her, Mira stirred and sat up slowly. She held the glowing crystal close to her chest. Its light was fading, but it was still warm. Mama. The stars came back, she whispered. Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, my little star. They came for you. Then she looked down. Evan lay a few steps away, half buried in sand. His chest rose weakly. His face was pale but peaceful. Lyra ran to him and knelt beside him. Evan, please stay with us. He opened his eyes slowly and smiled. You found it. The heart of light. Lyra shook her head, tears falling. You gave it to us, he coughed, voice rough. No, you finished what I couldn't, the signal. It's everywhere now. Every child will see the stars again. Mira crawled closer, holding the crystal toward him. "It's yours, Mr. Evan. You can have it back." He smiled faintly, touching her hand. "No, Mira, it belongs to you now. You're its heart." Far above them, across the galaxy, the Starlight Network had awakened fully. Every old satellite and forgotten toy was alive again. In refugee camps, slums, and faraway colonies, children looked up at glowing ceilings filled with constellations. For the first time in decades, the night felt alive with hope. But on Varela Prime, the government was in chaos. The sudden light storm had shorted their systems. Patrols lost contact. The commander's ship had vanished in the explosion. And the people had seen something they could never unsee, a sky full of light. The common citizens whispered, "The stars belong to everyone again." Back in the desert, Lyra tore a piece from her coat and pressed it against Evan's shoulder, where blood stained the fabric. "You need help," she said urgently. "We'll take you to the city. Someone will treat you." Evan smiled softly. "No hospital will take a human fugitive." Lyra gripped his hand tightly. "Then we'll hide you. I owe you that." He looked up at her with quiet eyes. "You already gave me more than I ever hoped for." Mira leaned closer, eyes glistening. "Will you stay with us forever?" Evan's breath shook. "No, little one, but I'll always be in your stars." Lyra tried to speak, but her voice broke. "Please don't say that. You deserve to live." He smiled faintly, pointing weakly toward the sky. "This is living, Lyra, seeing the universe alive again, feeling warmth instead of war." The wind carried his words away. Minutes passed in silence. Then softly the crystal began to glow again, stronger this time. It floated from Mira's hand and hovered over Evan's chest. Lyra stared in wonder. "What is it doing?" Mira's voice trembled. "Mama." It's saying goodbye. The crystal's light spread out in a slow pulse, covering Evan's body in a gentle aura. His face relaxed, his breathing steadied for a moment, and then stopped. The light dimmed until only a single bright point remained, the size of a small star, resting in Lyra's palm. Mira began to cry softly. Lyra hugged her tightly, whispering, "He's not gone, love. He's become light." They sat together in the sand as the dawn rose, the first real sunrise in years. The sky was clear, glowing pink and gold. For the first time, the world didn't look cold anymore. Days passed. The story of the Starlight miracle spread across the planet. People began to rebuild the old factories, turning them into schools and shelters. Children were given new Starlight dolls, not sold but gifted freely. Each one carried a symbol of a small glowing heart, Evan's design. Lyra and Mira returned to their home. Their lives slowly changed. No more hiding, no more fear. When Mira slept, the ceiling above her bed sparkled with gentle stars that sang softly. The same song that once played in Evan's memory. Sometimes at night, Lyra would stand by the window watching the stars. She always felt like someone out there was watching back. One night, as the sky glowed brighter than ever, Mira ran to her. "Mama, look! The big star, it moved!" Lyra followed her gaze. Among the constellations, one star shone brighter than all the rest. It pulsed gently, once, twice, almost like a heartbeat. Mira smiled. "It's him, isn't it?" Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, my love. The human who gave you the universe." They watched together as the star flickered again, sending faint lines of light that formed a new constellation. A child holding a small glowing doll. Lyra whispered. "Good night, Evan Clark," Mira whispered too. "Good night, my human star." And far across the galaxy, in every home, every world, and every lonely child's dream, the Starlight dolls glowed softly, whispering the same lullaby. Even in the darkest sky, love will always find its light. As the music faded, the stars above Varela Prime shimmered brighter, forever keeping one human's final promise alive. A promise written not in words but in light.